Ladies and gentlemen, it has been literally months in the making. Lots of technical difficulties and baby miracles, but we're finally together. I'll introduce our guest in a second. Welcome to, we took a summer vacation, but we're finally back. Obey the puck. I am Dan Calchigo, the above average comedian, so they tell me. With me, as always, Paul was called you Paul Levy. That's not how that works. Paul Baker and Kelly Levy, and our special guest, Zach. I forgot to ask before we got on the air. It's just Zack Fisch, correct?
You got it. It's spelled weird, easy to say, but you nailed it right off the top. Plenty of puns that go with it, plenty of fun that go with it, but sweet and simple.
I won't do that since you're new to the show. I will not bother you with the puns, and I actually didn't think of any. So listen. I have a long, complicated last name, so I get puns on the other side of it. All of them dirty, and I won't bother.
All you do is
Thank you, Paul. For those for those who don't know, I've had about 2 hours of technical difficulties, and like I said, Zach just welcomed a new baby into the world. We'll get to that in a second. But for those who don't know, Zach is the voice of your AHL, what is it, 11-time champion, Calder Cup champion Hershey Bears?
You got it right. Very proud of those 11 championships for Chocolate and White. If you ever been there, fans that follow it, it's a special community. It lives and breathes hockey. Chocolate Town, the city's based around being a good person and all beneficiaries of chocolate. And hockey's been a big part of it for 80 plus years. And just honored to be there every day, and definitely keeps me on my toes. And it's hard to stay on a diet when there's chocolate around 24/7. Let's put it that way.
I will say this, coming from the Philadelphia Adirondacks / Lehigh Valley Phantoms fandom, before I met Kelly, I'd never been to Hershey. Never been near it. Tried to get to Dorney Park once, and the car broke down. Again, another story for another time. But, it's like the trash talking to other fandoms, like, oh, Hershey Bear, until you go there. Exactly as you just touched upon. My experience was, and I'm just wearing this big, huge purple Phantoms jersey that, they used to wear in the Spectrum. Nobody gave you a hard time. It was one of the, first of all, you get out of the car and it smells great.
Yeah.
Chocolate permeates through that town the first time you go there. The arena's great. It's easy to get around. Everybody's happy. It's one of the most pleasant experiences I've ever had going to a hockey game. I'm going to break the ice, Zach. My first question is, how did you get into the business, and what was it like? How did you get the job with the Hershey Bears?
Yeah, it's been 10 years now. I've been doing this. Obviously, a passion of mine. I grew up in Kansas City, not exactly your hockey hotbed. They have an ECHL team in the area there, and an old IHL team was what I followed, the Kansas City Blades, growing up, and that was the team that I loved. Went to a ton of their games, was devastated when the IHL folded, but always knew I wanted to work in hockey. Decided to go to a school where I could not only study journalism or communications, but broadcast. So schlepped myself up to the cold tundra of Minnesota, to the state of hockey, and it is just gorgeous up there. St. Cloud State University, broadcast there for 4 years, did about everything under the sun that you could imagine on radio and TV there. First job was in the United States Hockey League. If you know where Dubuque, Iowa is on a map, props to you, because I had no idea where the heck that was when I got the job. Was a great spot. Jim Montgomery, the coach of the Dallas Stars, was our head coach there. We won a championship. I met my wife. I was there for 3 wonderful years and decided, let's get into pro hockey. And South Carolina was about the last team that I had interviewed with, among many others, that summer, and was lucky enough to get that one. After a year there, the job in Hershey happened to open. Definitely don't think I was necessarily the top candidate. There were some really qualified former NHL broadcasters. It just didn't work out with what they were doing. Thank goodness it didn't fall into my lap. It was definitely earned, but I think they had a few guys maybe that had been in the NHL before that were interested, and for whatever reason, maybe they didn't want to do the social media side of it personally, or maybe they didn't have the background of the other things that I have. Didn't work out there. So luckily for me, it's been 3 wonderful seasons already in Hershey. It is a gorgeous spot. The community is awesome, great schools, great family town. And then you're also in a heck of a division, the Atlantic, where you go to a lot of good cities and you play a lot of good teams, and every game is a battle when you're in this division. So it really is exciting when you get an opportunity to come to the rink and the fans have that passion and want to win. And not every city in the AHL has that, where there's that desire to win at the American League level. And our fans not only want it, they demand it. And a year like we had 2 years ago when we don't make the playoffs was unacceptable in a lot of eyes. And then this past year was a step in the right direction.
Hey, Kelly, I'm going to let you take over for a little while since this is the team you followed for as long as you have. Go ahead and we'll take over.
Oh, okay. Well, again, Zach, thanks for coming on and talk to us. I had the chance last year because of AHL TV. I watched probably about 70 plus Bears games. It was amazing. I live down here in Virginia, so get to the Bears games, which I did a lot especially when I was single. It's a 3-hour trip one way for me. So just getting to see the team on a regular basis has been great. And I've gotten to know you a lot better too, because my Bears fandom, especially on the radio, started with John Walton. So I was just wondering what kind of, if any, relationship you have with John. Did he give you any tips, any advice for when you took over?
Yeah, I wouldn't be here without John. He's been a great advocate and mentor of sorts to myself. My relationship with him started, I'd been a fan of listening to his. You try to always listen to different NHL, radio, TV broadcasters and pick up a thing or two, and always enjoyed his call. And his early days in Washington was around the time I was really kick-starting getting into a full-time position and a career. So listened to quite a bit of him and others. But working in South Carolina, the Capitals had come down during the year prior in 2015. The South Carolina Stingrays made the Kelly Cup Finals. Capitals were out, the Hershey Bears were out. So the Capitals staff, including John, actually came down the year before. So I wanted to reach out to them, knowing we were affiliates, and just make that connection. So I did right when I started in South Carolina, and give John a ton of credit. He answered the phone. He gave me 20 minutes of his time to pick his brain. And, there are a lot of prospects that come through the ECHL, way more than we all think of. But sometimes the ECHL team and the ECHL staff and the grand scheme of affiliations gets forgotten. But John always had the time of the day for me. And then when it came down to Hershey's job opening up, he was someone that was, from what I've been told, involved in the process and consulted. And, he certainly put in a nice word for me. I had done a couple podcasts with him where I had brought him on to pick his brain. And, again, he's talking about ECHL prospects that maybe isn't his area expertise, but he always gave us the time of the day. And opportunity to first time actually meet him was after I'd got the job. He provided a ton of help in getting the position and just giving some background and information that I need to know and wishing me well. First time meeting him was working an exhibition game with him. It was actually in Kansas City, where I grew up. They had an exhibition game between St. Louis and as well as Washington. And I was scheduled to work this with him before I even got the Hershey job. I just happened to mention in one of those podcasts that I was from Kansas City, and that's what he's all about, the opportunities, helping people out. Wouldn't be here without him. He's been great to me, working preseason games and rookie tournaments. I'll be going with him to the rookie tournament for the Capitals in Nashville coming up next month. So he's a hell of a broadcaster. He's got that trademark voice. And if you want to be on the edge of your seat being told a story, he's your guy. I mean, he is one of the best storytellers, and the phrases he uses, he will get you on the edge of your seat. And he's not afraid to poke the bear. If you're a fan of the other team, if you're a fan of the opponent, he is not afraid to go right at a Phantoms fan. I know he and Tom Grace, from what I've been told, the old Wilkes-Barre broadcaster, used to have some battles back in the day. So I'd say that, I have my moments, but he is never afraid to give his opinion in the best way possible. So certainly someone that's been a big, long-winded answer, but big influence in my career that wanted to give it as much justice as I can, because Bears fans were spoiled with him. By no means will I ever fill his shoes, but it's an honor to follow a guy like that, and I wouldn't be here without him.
Oh, that's really cool. During the Caps Cup run, when it was finally, when it was Game 5 and there was a chance that they could win the Cup, I couldn't watch the game. I was too nervous, but I did put John on, And even when it seemed to be didn't seem to be going well, but they were in the game kind of thing and finally put the game on, I didn't listen to the TV broadcast. I listened to John's call, which was awesome because it was running about a minute, because I was listening over the internet. It was running about a minute behind. So I knew what had happened, and I managed to put my brain together. I was like, wait, I can hear John's call. So I got to hear John's call, not live, but delayed. So that was definitely a highlight for me, having followed him from his Hershey days.
Bears fans have been spoiled with some really good broadcasters over the years. Dan Kamal, who did games in Atlanta, was there before, as well as Dave Mishkin, who's now in Tampa Bay. He's a guy that you can certainly hear with his emphatic calls, and has had some really good ones over the years when the Lightning won the Cup. And following in those guys' footsteps, people always ask me, like, is it nerve-wracking? People are constantly comparing you. People are probably always constantly cutting you down because you're not those people. For me, it keeps the bar raised. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't good at what I did. It's a suggestive industry, or subjective industry, I should say, as far as if people are going to like you or not. People are going to like who they like. And, Boston Bruins fans love Jack Edwards. A lot of people think Jack Edwards is a homer. It just, you're going to like who you're listening to, and you're going to like and hear things differently. So for me, it keeps the bar raised. It keeps me making sure that I come in prepared, I come in ready to go, I come in providing the best broadcast I can, because I know Hershey has those high standards, and that's what's exciting to me. I've been in a couple positions where I could have taken a job in the ECHL at one point with a team that no longer exists. I just got a bad gut feeling. This was years ago, and decided not to take it. It was a calculated risk, but it was a situation where, I could have walked in and just started talking and not knowing what I was talking about. And the guy I was replacing was just a young kid, and he did such a poor job that it didn't matter what I would have done. I would have been way better than him, not tooting my own horn. And just for me, I don't want to walk into that situation. South Carolina's always had good broadcasters. Hershey's always had great broadcasters, and to have that high standard, it makes it special, not only in the hockey, but in what I do as well.
Yeah, sure. You want to kind of position yourself against the best of the best. That's the only way you get better. And I have to say, I've listened to you for a couple of years now. You've definitely gotten better, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's I just think back on it, and like, you don't want to make excuses, but I listen to what I did 2 years ago, and I'm significantly in a better place, and I hope 2 years from now I'm having that same conversation. You come in and your first year, every building is new, every team is new, every city, player, rosters, you're getting comfortable. And I got thrown in where it was 3 days before the season started. I got to Hershey, and it wasn't the ideal start. My gear, the internet line was down in Rochester for my first game. So I had my cell phone, if you're watching on the video, my cell phone like this, trying to call the game. At the time, they were asking me to try to also do the Twitter feed. They've realized that most teams have a separate person for that. We have a media relations person that does that now. So I have one hand on my phone and the other hand on my keyboard trying to tweet the game from Rochester. And of course, it's a 5-4 barn burner where the puck just goes in every time. So that was my first introduction to the fan base that hadn't listened to that Capitals preseason game that I did with John. So, I had to earn my keeps, but I knew we were going to be on the air that night. No matter what I had to do, we were going to get on the air. So cell phone it was. But yeah, I listened back to where I was, and my goal call has changed, and I think it's a lot more exciting and enthusiastic. And I think it too, when you have those high standards, sometimes it gets in your head a little, well, what did the guys before me do? Can I copy that or replicate that? You just can't think that way. You have to be yourself. So you know what, if you're not trying to get better, you shouldn't be in this industry. And the AHL is a place to cut the teeth for young players, young broadcasters, coaches. It's a development league. And I think that, I'm trying to develop every day, just like these guys that are trying to get to the show.
I have I wanted to ask a question, and then Paul, you can ask the next question, and back to Kelly if she's got, because I know she, the rich history of.
I have many.
Oh, I bet you do.
All right.
I wanted to knock one off the list that's probably on one of yours, just to switch it up a bit and go back into the history. You were talking about when you got hired, but when did it occur to you, or when did it sink in? I'm a Phantoms fan. I'm wearing a frickin' Phantoms hat, and we talk about that all day. I'd rather not right now, but the Hershey Bears, even if even on the peripheral level, is one of those storied historied, larger than life hockey team? When did it sink in? Like, I am the voice of the Hershey Bears.
Yeah, there's been a couple moments. The first one was right after I got there. I got through my first day, and again, it's Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't remember which day it was, and we left for Rochester. I guess it would have been Tuesday, because we left for Rochester Thursday and played on Friday. So I'm like trying to get into my computer. I'm like, where's my laptop? I got to get ready for this road trip. We don't have a laptop. Okay, well, I need a laptop for the road. It's just so much stuff is whirling through my head, and I stayed in the office till about 7 o'clock that night. I'm like, all right, I got to go back to the hotel and get all this stuff done. But the first thing that I did was I went over to Hershey Park Arena. And if you've ever been there, it is the mecca of old school arenas that are still left. And I went over to Hershey Park Arena, and I sat there for 3 hours and put myself 3 hours behind. But I was just so enamored by the history. There was a youth game going on. I went up watching the whole damn thing. And just the banners, the history, the tradition, the smell. And it was like, whoa. This is big time. And then my first game there, too, was a couple weeks later. We were on the road to start for a couple weeks. And the first game there, it was a win, and the crowd was awesome. And I got to – the broadcaster introduces the starting lineup for the first game of the year and the entire team. And getting to do that was a surreal moment in that way. And then the other was the first time I met Doc Emmerich. I got to do kind of an on-camera thing with him. He was gracious enough to join our pregame show we did at the time. And just, you never know when Doc Emmerich's listening. He referenced something that I had done or said on the air the day prior, and I'm thinking, holy cow, like this Doc Emmerich knows Hershey. Doc Emmerich loves Hershey. And here he was listening to me at some point on his way into town. So those were 3 moments. I think the most surreal moment will hopefully, knock on wood, be and when we win a cup and we get to see that banner go up and be in history forever. Hopefully that day is coming sooner than later. I know Bears fans are hungry for it. But, yeah, there's been several pinch me moments for sure, especially early in that process.
Zach, you actually answered my question before I asked it, because I was going to ask you about Hershey Park Arena. And, the old Gordie Howe saying, anybody who's anybody in hockey has been to Hershey. But, just a quick thing. You'd have no problem replacing the play-by-play guy here in Providence. We haven't had one in years. So
I heard you got one, though. I saw it today. They got one. They have one.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I didn't see that, and I'm very pissed that they didn't even ask me about it.
Zach, just gave you breaking news, Paul.
Look at that. It's funny. I just wanted to tell a quick story about how we got in touch, Zach, because you were talking about John Walton poking the bear.
Yes.
And there was one night where you guys were in Providence, and I'm sitting down in my seats down at the dunk, and I get a text from Kelly. She says, "Man, the Hershey announcer is pretty salty right now about the dunk. I don't think he likes the place." So we started a little Twitter thing back and forth, and we got to talking, and it ended up very, very nicely because you're here with us on the show. So thank you very much.
No, it's my pleasure. And look, like just to go on that, I love Providence, man. Let me tell you this. Let me give you a couple places. Federal Hill, if you want some good Italian food, my goodness. Andino's or Casarino's, we've been to both. We'll set you up. Our longtime trainer now, what's his role? Team Affairs, Dan Beakerstock, legend in the AHL. Anyone that's worked in the league knows this guy is a beauty. His son, Dustin, is the head guy now, the trainer in Providence. So obviously getting to know that a little bit. But every broadcaster in the league, I think if you went back and listened to it, I think Jason Shia from Charlotte wrote something in an article about it and was talking about it. Nobody likes that corner press box that they moved to. There's no ice microphone, so when there's 3 anthems in a row, you're literally picking up, muffled kids talking in the crowd over the anthem. So it's a little bit difficult and challenging, and they haven't had a broadcaster. Feel bad for the 2 guys. Nick being the one I knew a little bit, they let him go right before the 2017 playoffs. And then the only person that people can listen to is me in 2017. And it was a heck of a series, 7 games with Providence, a lot of future NHLers. I remember Jake DeBrusk was awesome in that series. And, you get so many of these guys, and I'm glad to see that they're changing that over because, Bruins fans, if you're a hockey fan, you appreciate a good broadcaster that calls a fair game. That's what I try to pride myself on. It's going to be a Hershey call first and foremost, but Providence fans want to listen to a Providence broadcaster. And your breaking news, you probably would know how to say the name. I think his dad is the public address announcer for the Patriots, Austin Rook or Rook. I'm not
Rook.
a Patriots fan. There you go.
That's John Rook.
A Marquette graduate. It will be a little article that got put out today, the play-by-play guy for home games for the Providence Bruins. So that's nice to see that will be added next year. Another good guy to get to know. I'm sure he'll do a great job. But yeah, Providence is an awesome city, and the rivalry is there, and we always play really good games. But when it's on the other end of the ice from where I am, I don't know what's going on. So I just have to guess.
I mean, having worked in that press box myself a couple times, it's terrible. No argument there.
It's not ideal, but they do provide great Dunkin' Donuts coffee as well as some really delicious fresh popcorn. Us media guys,
but no donuts.
For that is so. Yeah, it is the Dunkin' Donuts Center, and it's a city that we really enjoy going to, and we play there quite a bit. Not a ton, but quite a bit. And it always seems that they're in the playoffs as well, and we've had some fun series over the years. So I always circle that one on there. I just need to bring my binoculars a little bit more, and I'm sure there'll be one little salty comment in there about it, and then we'll move on. The Andinos or Casarinos makes up for it, though.
Oh, absolutely. Andinos is my favorite place, no doubt.
Kelly, boss lady, you could take back over. The show is yours.
Oh, well, no, I was just going to say, I appreciated the salt. I found it hilarious. That was early in the season, too. I think it was maybe late October, early November.
Yeah, it was not going well.
Yeah, and the Bears were horrible, and that just made my day, because it was just like you were feeling the way I was, and you just decided to kind of talk about it in terms of the press box. But we all Bears fans kind of understood what you were really saying.
Let me point this out. When we're watching a game together, she will stay off Twitter because I'm the one that will fire stuff off, either from the Obey the Puck page or my own page. Because I'll watch all hockey. Like Kelly said at the beginning, she said when we got AHL, as soon as AHL TV was announced, I signed up for it. I'm like, we are good. Yes. Oh my God. And it's because it's so hard. Because I come from Philly, South Jersey, moved down with her to Virginia. I can't watch Flyers games unless I cut my arm off every week because all the blackout restrictions. And AHL was so expensive, but they finally threw AHL TV, and I was like, sign up. There we go. Yeah. So I was out, or I think I was visiting my dad, and all I saw was my Twitter notifications for Kelly going off. I was like, what the hell's going on? I check it.
Yeah, and Kelly rarely tweets.
It's just like, oh, Jesus, what's happening?
I struck a nerve in the best way possible.
That was so funny.
No, it was awesome because I was sitting. My seats are actually kind of right below where you were, Zach. So I'm getting these. It was a fun night.
Yeah, it was, and that's the great thing about. I mean, Twitter is a cesspool sometimes of awfulness. I think we all know that, and I'm sure that I remember getting some love, and I say love in the indirect way of being sarcastic from some P Bruins fans in those 2017 playoffs. Because I mean, like I said, they want to listen to their guy, they want their slant on it, and it wasn't always about me. Mitch Lamoureux is my color commentator. He's a former Providence Bruin and
yes, he is.
Hershey Bear great, but he bleeds the chocolate and white, and he's going to call it like he sees it, and with his Bears colored or his chocolate and white colored glasses on. So we had some fun with it, but that's what it's all about. Like, hockey's a small world. You never know. And we all love the game that we love, and we all love the teams that we do. But, yeah, it made for a fun little banter that night. And that's always good when it can be respectful like that. I always enjoy it because there's some great rivalries, and then there's some people that just blow up and take it way too seriously. And one example is, I know I got pissed off some Wilkes-Barre fans, but a thing that I hate about going there is the fan above me, you're right in the top level of the lower bowl, and the fan right below me will always roll down a bear, Coco the bear doll, on a noose, and it will go right, kind of not in my line of sight, but
wow.
I hate the Coco on the noose. It just, this day and age, it just, to me, is not the way that I would do it. I get the rivalry. Phantoms fans will chant "kill the bear." Like, it's all part of it. But I bitched a little bit about that things, and I said something along the lines of that our fan love. Well, they can hang a bear on a noose, but they can't hang a Calder Cup banner here in Wilkes-Barre, which is a huge point of frustration for Wilkes-Barre fans because they've come close, while Bears fans out. I was a little salty that night. I was playing into my clientele. I got to have Bears broadcast, but I don't think all the Wilkes-Barre fans took kindly to it. But like I said, I can guarantee you that John probably said much, much, much worse over the years.
He was doing one of these. He was clapping.
Yeah, for me, that's about as bad as it gets. But there'll be a pot shot in there every once in a while, just like I know if people take shots, especially 2 years ago, about how poor we were. So our social media game will never be as rough and tumble as some of the other teams. We had an intern that tried to do some stuff like that. We told him to pump the brakes and relax a little bit, but once in a while, especially if it's a blowout in the wrong direction, you might get that salt out of me.
No, that's great. Don't ever lose that.
Oh, no, I like it.
But they have so many
broadcasts.
They have so many banners in Wilkes-Barre.
It's,
I went for last year was the first time I'd ever been to Wilkes-Barre.
Really?
And wow. I was very confused by all the banners.
Yeah, they have a lot of the Penguins NHL ones, and for me, just I love going there and playing there. It's a tough place to play. Their staff does a nice job creating good atmosphere. It's a little bit more like 90s hockey to me a little bit. Just the board is a little up to date, but just kind of the music they play is a little old school, and it's a little bit dimmer in there, and the seats are kind of blue, and they came in 99, and I kind of feel like sometimes I'm going back to one of those IHL games as a kid. There's always rough and tumble when we play there. I love going there and doing a game. I think their staff does an awesome job, and it's a rivalry in a lot of ways, but for us, it's a place where our guys love to win. And Lehigh Valley is becoming that too, in a way where we lost there for 9 straight games. So now that we started winning there again, it's a place that they love going to play. And it's 12 times a year for both those teams. So you better figure out how to win some games in those cities, because we see those two teams 24 times, and they're usually never a pushover. This year they both miss, but they're usually never a pushover. And that's the difference between this league and 20 years ago is there's a lot of competition and a lot of parity.
I hate the fact that you're beating us, and I would like you to stop.
Yeah, well, I never thought that day would come. I'll be 100% honest with you. Like, I had a lot of confidence our team would turn the corner, but for whatever reason, Lehigh Valley had our number, and we went there after getting beaten 6-2 in Springfield in January of this past year, and it looked grim. And I remember sitting on the bench with Nathan Walker, who's now with the St. Louis organization, Australian player, first ever Australian in the NHL, a great Hershey Bear, an awesome human, and sitting on the bench with him, and we just kind of we're like, what's going wrong right now? We're in these games, and then they're slipping away, and he trusted me, I trusted him. It wasn't anything that we were going to share on the air. He got some stuff off his chest. I got some stuff off my chest, and we went out and got a shutout that night, got the win, and the team played great, and then just built some confidence from there. So there's a lot of bright young prospects, but the Capitals have sold off a lot of really good players sold off a lot of good draft picks to get good players to try to win the Stanley Cup, and they did. So the farm system maybe has played a little bit of effect of that. The 80th anniversary season 2 years ago was probably a product of that, but I really think they've rebuilt it quite nicely. Spencer Carberry, former Providence Bruins assistant, is a really good coach, and it's great to see the Bears back in the upper echelon and where the fans are used to them. But I mean, being top 4 in the Atlantic, like we got a bunch of different teams represented here, from Providence to Lehigh to Hershey to all around. Like this is a tough division just to qualify for the playoffs in. You look at the Springfield, which had a chance last year and slipped, and they made some nice additions this summer, but like they're just clawing, trying to get in right now from the teams that are always in there. It makes it tough every game, and those divisional points so giant, which can complain about playing the division so much, but those games become huge come March and April.
Kelly.
Oh, absolutely. I was wondering, well, you talked about having discussion with Nathan, and I'm not asking you to talk about any of the things that you guys discussed, but what did you see? Because that was such a drastic turnaround with that team. I mean, they were terrible from the beginning of the season until January-ish, and then they just went on a tear. Like I said, I watched a lot of games. I kept trying to remind myself they were a very young team overall. They didn't have a lot of veteran presence, but they just all of a sudden they seemed to just play with confidence. But I was wondering if you noticed anything yourself as you were watching games, anything in particular, or certain players that kind of stood out. I know Samsonov all of a sudden figured out angles and wasn't falling all over the place after, because he would make that initial save, but the rebounds initially were just like he was just all over the place, and it was scary.
Yeah,
and then he seemed to figure that out, and he got on a roll, and Vanacek got on a roll, and it was fun to watch.
Yeah, he was a big part of it, and we need our goaltending to be solidified. Vitek was an all-star, but that tandem was as good as any. I mean, Ilya, I think, was statistically top 2 goaltender in the American League in the second half of the year in eye-popping numbers. It was a variety of things for me. I thought there was a lot of games we were in. We just couldn't figure out how to finish it, whether it was we let a lead slip away or we just couldn't get one. We're a team of a lunch pail attitude that had to work hard for their bounces and chances, and we just weren't getting enough. Chemistry had to find it there. The young guys had to find their way through. You talk about Samsonov being one of them, but like Garrett Pilon, it took him like 25 games to score his first goal, and he became a huge part of the run in the second half. There was a lot of guys that came up with clutch scoring. We got a little bit healthier, and then we just got that confidence and that swagger and that ability to find a way to capitalize 1 out of 4 on the power play that night rather than 0 for 4 and get that game-breaking goal or to get that late save. Like, we didn't score a ton in a lot of those games. A lot of them were shootout wins that we scraped by, or 1-2. We had 2 1-0 wins in there. The only loss we had in that 17-game point streak was a 2-1 shootout loss. So they were low-scoring type games. We weren't blowing the doors off anybody. It was just a team that was finding a way to win and getting some clutch contributions from guys. And we added Ryan Sproul as well, a very good veteran defenseman. I can't believe he's still unsigned, to be honest with you, around the league. He's good enough to help a lot of teams out there on an American League deal. He really solidified the young group on the back end, and the pieces of the puzzle just all came together. And there were some really frustrating days for the team, for the coaches, for the management, for just a guy like myself, and for the fans too. And I thought we were a better team than we were playing. I knew there would be some growing pains. I said I didn't expect us to start 0-5, and I didn't expect us to start 5-0, but we started 0-5. So we really had a hole to dig out of, and that's not an easy hole in that division. But there was kind of a culmination of things coming together, and for me, the nucleus of the young group is back next year with Scarbosa leading scorer back. Do lose some key players, but added some really good ones. So it has me excited for the year because those guys that were good as freshmen hopefully will take that next step as sophomores, and there's even more second and third rounders coming in, higher end reinforcements than we've had in a couple of years.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this season. I can't wait to see. Like you said, there's been a lot of subtraction from the team last year, but a lot of new additions. So I think that's part of why I enjoy the AHL game in general so much. Is it's pretty much a new team every year. You have some of the mainstays, but there's always a new part of the mixture, and then you get to see what that team does. That's why it's so unpredictable too.
Some fans love that. Some fans hate that. I mean, I know the older school fans love. There's like 5, 6, 7 guys that you would be back every year, and you knew they'd be there. And I mean, we have Liam O'Brien, who I think's going to 6th year now in Hershey. We had Garrett Mitchell, who's no longer with the team, that was there 7. So you get a few that are around a long time and are just kind of the mainstays. But yeah, guys do come and go, and with the veteran rule they have in place, you're limited on keeping these guys around. So you're always seeing this young talent. But, I mean, from a Providence perspective, looking at their roster this past year, I mean, so many guys that we saw in that playoff series are up in the NHL from both Providence and Hershey as well. They're in the NHL now and they're playing in the playoffs. I mean, we had Verana, Chandler Stevenson, Madison Bowie, Christian Juice, Phoenix Copley, just off the top of my head, on that Hershey team, Travis Boyd, all of that Hershey team in the playoffs, and DeBrusque, among others, in Providence playing in that series. So that's the exciting part of it for me, too, is seeing them going up and succeeding. But then you get the next group. I mean, I had Carson Kuhlman in juniors, a very good player for Providence, won a championship with him in Dubuque, and seeing him score a goal in the Stanley Cup Finals was awesome. Like, he's done the development path, And once he got called up from Providence to Boston early in the year, he came back. He was the best player on the ice, him and Paul Carey, by a mile for the P Bruins there in the second half. So it's great seeing these guys go on to the next level. And on top of it, you kind of that changeover because they're moving on, hopefully to greener pastures in their careers, while you still get some of those mainstays that are really the familiar faces for the fans, like Liam O'Brien and Hershey.
Yeah, I mean, so you've been you've done the circuit in the AHL now for 3 years. So for me, I'm a big traveling guy. So
sure.
obviously the Stadium Journey and stuff, the other podcasts we do. So what are some of your favorite places to visit in the league?
You know what? I think Toronto's up there. I'd never really gotten a chance to do much in Toronto, just visiting, passing through until we went to Toronto. Coca-Cola Coliseum is a really cool building. Got a chance to do a game at Air Canada Center there. Hockey Hall of Fame, great food, good spots to grab a drink, just a really cool downtown vibe. A big city, so you expect that for sure. Also really like Laval. I haven't done a lot of exploring the city. They have a couple good restaurants that we checked out there. The rink is gorgeous, brand new as well. A couple Canadian cities. On the more regular road trip side, Providence for me is one of my favorite ones just because we kind of know what we do there. We have the same restaurants that we go to. The mall is within walking distance of the arena. We go to that big mall all the time and do some shopping and get lunch there. And they have a Dave & Buster's in there. So we have a lot of fun. And it's a cool old architecture just in that Federal Hill area as well. So enjoy that. A lot of college students around. So that's definitely one of my favorite road trips that we go on as well. But Charlotte is up there for sure. We've been lucky enough to go there when it has not been hot elsewhere. So to go there when it's nice and warm. Have a really cool epicenter with a lot of great places to grab a bite to eat. Right downtown by the baseball stadium. I'd love to get to a game there. And I think the NASCAR Hall of Fame is something that's on my bucket list as well.
Oh, it's fantastic. You got to check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. To get there as well. So I'm excited to explore Cleveland a little bit more next year, but there's a lot of good spots, and arena wise, like you get the different vibes. Like Syracuse is awesome to call a game in, slap shot, you're right on top of the ice, and all sorts.
So when you go to Cleveland, Zach,
there you go.
Lizard.
I got my spot right there now. I haven't been there yet, so that'll be the spot. But yeah, that's part of the enjoyment. Is we're lucky enough a lot of times to travel the day before and have a night to go check out a restaurant or do a touristy type of thing. And that's really cool to see these other cities. I'm not saying they get old by any means, but you learn your routines and habits. I've probably been to the restaurants that are close enough to walk to, all of them in Hartford. We've been there enough at that time. I really enjoy going there, and I kind of know the area quite a bit since we play there, or Bridgeport or Springfield, whatever it may be. So most places you stay really close to the rink, but sometimes like in Bridgeport, you're a little further away, so you get to check out different areas. It might be worth an Uber ride, but I love the travel aspect of it. Getting to go to the Midwest for the last 2 years was neat, since not a lot of East and West teams play, and that's kind of where a lot of my family's from. It was pretty cool to do some games out that way, and would love to see the league do, and the teams have to agree to do it. That's what people don't quite get, but I'd love to see the teams agree to do it, and a little bit more of it start up between teams. It just makes sense for Texas or Chicago to come through and do Wilkes-Barre, Lehigh, and Hershey. But it just hasn't really taken off quite yet.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was a fan. My Hershey fandom started in '96 when I first made it up for a game, and after the IHL folded and some of those teams joined the AHL, I was so excited that I was going to get to see some of these teams that I had kind of been following, through the early internet and stuff like that. And then, I would go up. I went up in '97 and '98, and I was like, these teams are never. They're never coming here. And it was only via the playoffs and making the finals that I finally saw Milwaukee, and then I saw Texas. And it's just frustrating to never get to see those teams. Have you had a chance at all to I know Hershey hasn't played any of the California teams. Have you had a chance to see any of those arenas out in the far west?
I haven't. I've been to California. I got to go to an Anaheim Ducks game years ago, just when they had made that switch to the Anaheim Ducks from the Mighty Ducks, and got to explore there and went to LA and saw the Staples Center, but haven't been able to be to the American League cities. A lot of our people here are very connected to Mike Stothers, former Hershey coach, who is now in Ontario, and he says very good things about the arena out there. It's a lot of traffic, I know, in that area, but heard really good things about that building. Troy Mann, our old coach in Hershey and Belleville now, always talk fondly about the building in Bakersfield. So would love to get out there. Of course, the Sharks and Barracuda share a building, but would love to get out there. And I mean, for me, I think one of the coolest trips that I did get to do, and I didn't mention it, was Grand Rapids that we did for the last 2 years for a variety of reasons. Growing up in the IHL side of things, really cool building that reminded me of Kemper Arena in Kansas City, where I grew up going to games. And the Blades of Kansas City were actually owned by the Grand Rapids Griffins, same owners, and that's why they couldn't come into the American League. AHL had a rule that you can only own one team in the league, so they had to kick that team to the curb because the folks were from Grand Rapids. But Bob Kaiser, the voice of the Griffins, who's a very passionate, good broadcaster, been there a long time, did the games in Kansas City, and he was the guy I listened to growing up. So to swap stories with him and get to meet him and call a game next to him, nicest guy. Could not be a better person. If you were going to meet one broadcaster in the league, and I'm very close with a lot of them, and I consider a lot of them friends, and a lot of them I know better than Bob. But if you're going to meet one guy in the league that is going to treat you like he's known you his entire life and give you the time of the day, if you want to tell him 20 fan stories or 20 stories like I was a fan, he's going to sit there and listen and talk back. He was awesome. So that was a cool trip for me, and to see the old Turner Cup banners and IHL banners up there as well. And a cool city if people ever get an opportunity to go there. And a really good,
fantastic downtown.
Yeah, a really good downtown and a really good American League city as well. You look at them in Chicago and you think of those two teams in my mind in the Midwest that are always good and always are just a city that packs the buildings on a regular basis, kind of those cornerstone franchises since they've come into the league.
Yeah, I have a really good friend who's been a Griffins season ticket holder since the beginning of that franchise, and I couldn't have been happier when the Griffins finally won the Calder Cup, and then of course they did it again. So that one I wasn't so happy about, but that first time for them, I was really happy for my friend and for that fan base, because like you said, they're just fantastic.
No, I couldn't agree more. There's just some really good spots in the league, and I think the American League we follow it every day. But I think we get a lot of Capitals fans that come down to games maybe for the first time. Like when Devontae Smith-Pelly got sent down to Hershey, we picked up a lot of Capitals fans that had come to Hershey for the first time to get a chance to see him play, and because it's a short road trip. And I think you pick these guys up and you come down there and you're not quite sure what to expect. It's not the NHL, but the hockey's good. The fans are good in the majority of the cities. It's competitive. It's fast. It's exciting. I know the fights are down, and that's a point of contention for a lot of people, but it's a good product. And more people are seeing the future stars play. And we pick up a lot of fans from Washington because of that. And it's a unique mix because it used to be the Flyers affiliate in Hershey. So there's a ton of Flyers faithful. There's Pittsburgh fans in that area. And then you have the Capitals fans that are fans because of the affiliation or because they're somewhat close. So it's a kind of a melting pot of NHL love, but I really enjoy that aspect of just how good the hockey is and getting fans to see that more and more.
And you have the confused souls who were there in the late '90s who were Lightning or Avalanche fans.
Yes.
Who are just those poor people.
Exist. Those still exist. We still see a handful of Colorado Avalanche jerseys coming through our building from that affiliation. I mean, they won the Cup in '97, and the Avalanche had success. So it was short-lived, but very successful in that mind. It's always interesting hearing the favorite players, and we get some of those guys from that era that were top of mind for a lot of people. It's nice to see the affiliation sticking a little bit more. I think you think back 5 years and you look at Springfield and they had been through everybody. It just
and I think they're back at the beginning.
Sake. I mean, you talk Providence, they just signed a 10-year extension. Like that's unheard of, but awesome. And then there's a lot more that are just sticking. Lehigh's a perfect spot for Philadelphia. Wilkes-Barre and Pittsburgh makes a ton of sense. And then you've kind of flushed it out where Springfield has really revitalized themselves in a good spot for Florida, and the identities are there, and that history and tradition is able to stay in the cornerstone markets like Rochester, Hershey, or Providence. But at the same time, you can kind of grow the game some of these other markets. So the AHL has expanded rapidly, but I think they've done a good job. They're now in the right spots, and they've lost some good cities in the process. And I've seen some of those cities dying in the ECHL in my year there. I mean, Norfolk's an example. Manchester's an example.
Manchester's gone.
Yeah, Manchester, see you later. And then Norfolk, and they're one where we had some games that was just, you're looking around going, where is everybody? And it's an awesome city. Virginia Beach is great. The rink is cool. And then they had other games there where they were packed for games that we did. So I know the attendance hasn't been great there. I hope they get it going because it's a really cool spot. But that's really hurt some teams. You know, Portland was out for a while. Now they're back and doing well in the ECHL. So we've seen the landscape change dramatically. But overall, I think it was great. We just got to get everybody up to the same number of games played. That's what I would like to see next. And I think most American League fans agree with that. Even I think fans out west agree with it. And I know Dave Andrews agrees with it, but we're just not there quite yet. Hopefully sooner than later.
Kelly, did you want to close out the interview, or did you have anything else, or did you ask?
I think I've monopolized Zach's time more than enough.
I have one final question.
Let's do it.
What's it like calling a game with Freddie Cassivi?
Oh, he's a good guy. He's got that French flair, that accent, and he won't be doing as many games for us this year, unfortunately, just because his kid has made a very competitive team, and Freddie's going to be helping coach. So we're losing him in the booth a little bit, but you look at that, I think goaltending and being an amateur goaltender, you like to think you know what you're talking about. Being a hockey fan, you like to think you know it's a stoppable shot or not. But having a goalie on the air with me to kind of flesh out some of those situations really is helpful. And having Mitch, too, is awesome. He's a bigger personality in so many ways, and he can provide his expertise from playing, and the fans really appreciate that. That was important to bring those guys into me when we got here because we do have some good alumni. But Freddie could kind of give a different perspective while you see the initial shot go in. You're like, whoa, that didn't look good. Well, there was a tip, there's a deflection, the puck went down, this, that, all that, the other that you never might think of, or how hard it is to do this. But, yeah, he's got that little French flair to him that our fans love, and he's such a good guy, and the alumni have been awesome too. But
I'll never forget the first time I heard you guys, because as we said, Kelly and I would watch all the Phantoms and Hershey Bears games, and one of the first games that last year you and Freddie called, I heard this booming voice talking. I'm like, who the hell is that? And Kelly's like, you tell Freddie. I'm like, oh no, I didn't mean it like that. I just, Jesus, I don't want him to kill me. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. The two of you were great. I loved those games, and I hate your team.
He's really good to work with. Mitch is really good to work with. Like, that's it. Hershey, we're lucky that a lot of guys have stayed. And we're working on hopefully getting another guy to step in next year. A lot of guys have stayed. And when I came in, we kind of switched that a little bit. Mitch had been doing some games, and we wanted him to do a little bit more. The feedback had been good on his broadcast previously. And it's just that expertise level that we all love the game. We all love talking about the game. And I'm still the one. Those two guys are never going to call play-by-play, nor should they. They would be the first to admit that. That's something that we all have the talent to do this show like you do. They're not going to be doing a talk show. But at the same time, there's certain things that I can bounce off them that is a perspective that we're just never going to be able to give because we've never blocked a shot like that. We've never played in this high-pressure situation, and that analysis is awesome. So they keep me on my toes, Mitch particularly in the best way, but he's become a good family friend, and you know, he's one of the greatest to play the game in the American Hockey League, and numbers retired and in the Hall of Fame for a reason. So things like that just make the job that much more special. And we have a lot of fun up there, and hopefully we'll get to call games well into June next year in a little bit shorter summer. And my kid is small enough that if we win the Calder Cup now in 2020, he's going to fit in it. So let's go Bears. This has got to be your year. He's 2 or 3 years old. He might be a little bit big for it. So hopefully we can make that happen.
Kind of sit him inside of it and just go like that. But I would like to say that as a Phantoms fan, hearing you and Freddie and hearing you call the games because, and you know how I mean this. I mean no disrespect. I hate the Bears, so it makes it easier to watch to have a guy call it as you're freaking great. So we traveled a lot to listen and watch AHL games. I don't know where the W came from. And you guys are one of the better broadcasts out there, period. So I wanted, from an evil person, a Phantoms fan, I wanted to thank you and also thank you for taking the time out. And congratulations.
Thank you.
And before you go, if you'd ever like to come back on, please don't hesitate to, unfortunately, probably talk about how better you are than us this year. But
we'll see.
We can he can do every once in a while, like every month, he can check in and do press box reviews for us.
There you go.
I mean, I don't have the budget for that.
Yeah.
Zach, where can people follow you on social media, sir?
Easy enough. It's just, like I said, my name is easy to say, but sometimes difficult to spell because my parents had to be tricky with the first name, and the last name's weird too. Just Zack Fisch on Twitter, ZACK FISCH. Can get there through the Bears account as well. We do some fun summer mailbags. Love to have fans from other teams contribute to those. Just Zack Fisch on Twitter is the best place to follow me. Very active on Twitter, Instagram as well. But no, this was fun. I appreciate you guys having me on. I got a little more sleep with the kid here. I appreciate you guys rearranging the schedule as we had some early stuff with the pregnancy looming, and it's been fun being a parent so far. The road trips, I'm gonna be sound asleep on the bus right away, and I'm gonna on the hotel beds this year. No, this is what it's all about. Talking hockey in the middle of the summer. I guess we're getting into the fall, but getting close to the season when we're months away, that's what makes it fun, and I appreciate it. I had a good time being here today, and I'm looking forward to the year. I think the P Bruins will have a good squad. I think Lehigh is going to be much improved. A lot of new faces for me to learn there this year, and I really like Hershey's chances as well. So, getting to the rink every day is a blessing and a lot of fun, and getting to talk about it I know is a treat for all of you, and looking forward to hopefully doing it again. And we'll see what Providence brings this year as far as press box side of things, but I'm just going to get a pair of binoculars and we'll be good to go.
Well, you're always welcome to come down to 101 right on the glass, Zach. That's where I am.
101. I'd say we'd get a drink, but I would lose my job in that case. So maybe
don't do that.
Well, afterwards.
Maybe after the game.
We'll go to Andino's after the game.
There you go. Some calamari and a nice glass of red. Let's call it good.
Sounds good to me.
Zach, thank you again for joining us. Have a good one, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
My pleasure. Thanks so much to the three of you, and let's talk again soon. Enjoy the rest of your summer. It'll be here before we know it.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
You too, Zach. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you very much. Zack Fisch of the Hershey Bears. It's funny. He touched upon, I guess we could close it out with a little bit of AHL, and I want to add one more topic I wanted to bring up before we go. He mentioned the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. That dynamic is going to change back to what it was again, because a lot of that fall down the hill, because they were doing just fine. And the problems that happened with the Flyers then trickled down to the Phantoms because they took Scott Gordon, they bumped up Kerry Huffman. I'm not going to harp on that because I already did, but getting people back where they were, Scott Gordon and Kerry Huffman, and making those changes and having a solid roster, hopefully this year, especially goaltending, that will change their luck. I really, really hope it will. And hopefully we won't have it back on when the Bears win the Calder Cup, but I mean that strictly from a Phantoms fan. I don't mean anything by that. I did want to talk about one thing because I don't. There's a bunch. It asks more questions than it answers. The W. No, I'm going to get letters right before the end of the show, folks. The NWHL announced a major sponsorship this year, and it is the original Chipwich. The original ice cream sandwich. I saw the NWHL catching a lot of flack for this. And I know it's partly because they're having this boycott thing and they want more. The players want more solidarity with the league, and I wanted to get Kelly's thoughts on this as well, obviously. But from my perspective, I could be way off base on this, and you guys can set me straight. This is more money coming into the league, which is part of what they're looking for in the first place. People are making fun of the league doing this with you. Bitch, that's more money. I don't know what the problem is. Paul, your thoughts first. This is a good thing because, again, it's more eyes on the product. It's more money coming in to where they couldn't pay the players before. Hopefully, this gets more people going. All right, we can sponsor these teams.
Hey, this is going to be their 5th season of the league? And going into this, they've only had really one major sponsor, that being Dunkin' Donuts. So anytime you can add another corporate name and add more revenue, another revenue stream, even if it's not the biggest name, yeah, sure, this isn't, Chevrolet sponsoring them or something. It's Chipwich. But still, hey.
It's Chipwich!
Another corporate. Chipwiches are delicious.
Just saying.
I saw an outstanding Twitter post today by Anya Battaglia. Yeah. And it shows she's about to get married to another former player, Madison Parker. And I think their wedding's like in a week. But Madison had never, according to this post, had never had a Chipwich before. So announced the deal. And it shows her opening up the Chipwich and taking a bite. And then all of a sudden, she just kind of starts this swaying dancing. It's like, oh my God, I have missed this for the first 25 years of my life or whatever.
I mean, it's an ice cream sandwich with chocolate. How is that a problem? Kelly, I don't know if you saw, but now if you've just heard it for the first time, how are you feeling about that with the whole with the
whole that is the first.
That
is the first I've heard of it. It's the same thing that happens on the internet all the time. Some criticism is leveled and someone does something to address the criticism, and then they have to criticize whatever that answer was, because no one can ever be happy on the internet.
Yeah,
exactly. I see no bad in getting another sponsor. Hopefully it opens the floodgates and they get more and more sponsors of all different corporate levels. But yeah, I don't see how that could possibly be a negative.
Do we know what the status? Because people are still signing contracts, so ladies are still getting into the league. Do we know what the status is with the boycott going on? Is the season still going to happen? What's the deal?
Okay, as far as I know, and I'm not an insider. I mean, I do volunteer for the Pride, and I've done some not play-by-play for them. I wish I've done some PA work at the games for them. But as far as I know, the schedule is announced, and there are. I think some of the teams still have holes in the roster, but they've got a solid commitment of players. Now, where it's missing is that top-level talent, like the national team players are holding firm in the boycott. But for those people, just think of when some of the other sports have had like their strikes or their lockouts, and it's kind of given a chance to that next layer down to make their mark. And so people are not, people are jumping at the chance to sign. So the season will go on as planned. They released their schedule, and the schedule is very interesting this year. Taking the Pride, for example, the Pride, I think they actually extended the season. They made it a little longer. But what they're doing is they reduced travel in it. So what they're doing now is they're doing a lot of weekends. So a team will come to town, play Saturday, Sunday. So they get 2 games that way. So that's how they extended the season. But the Pride, for example, I think they start with a road game, and then they play something like 8 or 9 consecutive home games. So like the first half of their season is all home, and the second half of the season is all on the road. And I looked at a couple other teams, and they're either similarly built or the opposite. They flop it the other way. So it's really different. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm kind of worried about, but I want this to go through. I want the boycott to happen. I absolutely want that to be a positive coming out of this. I support it 1,000%. Anybody who has an opinion against it, it's the same opinion that you have against the women's national soccer team. Obviously, a lot more money should be dealt with there because of their reach and their championships. But you're wrong. Sorry. Sorry to disappoint you. Kelly, did you have anything to close on the NWHL, or are you good?
Oh, with the women's national, with the soccer team, it's the American way. Women doing the same job better and getting paid less.
Amazing. What a novel idea. I think that's all for this week. I got nothing else for you. Kelly, where can the people follow you on Twitter?
Folks can follow me at Sked Central.
Paul, you, sir.
I can be found on the internet at PuckmanRI.
Follow me on Twitter at DanLaw83. The HIAC Talk Radio Network is on all social media platforms at HIAC Talk Radio. The Obey the Puck podcast is also on Facebook at Obey the Puck. It's on Twitter at Obey Puck Show. For some reason, Obey the Puck was taken. I couldn't use it. We are currently being housed at the VOC Nation Radio Network. Search iTunes and Blog Talk Radio, VOC Nation Radio. We will have our website back up sometime in September, so soon we'll be re-uploading to all the normal feeds, but I thank you for your patience and your time. Watch the video podcasts starring this week, Zack Fisch of the Hershey Bears at youtube.com/danlaw83. For Zack Fisch, Paul Baker, and Kelly Levy, I am the above-average comedian Dan Calchico. We will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you, and good night.